In this video, let us solve quadratic equations, and we need to remember that the general form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, and then a, b and c are constants and also a is not equal to 0. We can solve such equations using factorization method. We can also solve them by completing square, and we can also use the quadratic formula. Okay, so let us begin with equations that are in factored form. In number 1, let's look at x minus 2 into x plus 5 equals 0. So we remember that the only way that we can get 0 is that when multiplying two numbers, one can be 0 or both can be zeros. So we will use that assumption to solve these equations. So we'll say that x minus 2 is equal to 0, or x plus 5 is equal to 0. And in that case, let's add 2 on both sides such that these two will go and we remain with x is equal to 0 plus 2, which is 2. This side we get minus 5 and this side minus 5, such that we get a 0 here and we get x is equal to 0 minus 5, which is negative 5. So this means that x is equal to 2, or x is equal to negative 5. Okay, let's get another example. Let's have 2x into x plus 3. It is equal to 0. So like how we have done the first example, still we say that 2x is equal to 0, or x plus 3 is equal to 0. So in this case, this part we say that x is 0 divided by 2, such that we get x equals 0. And for this part, we subtract 3 from both sides, such that here we will get a 0 and we get x is equal to 0 minus 3, which is negative 3. So this means that x is equal to 0, or x is equal to negative 3. Let's move on. We get another example. So let's have 3x plus 2 into 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. So like how we have done example 1 and example 2, we will still have 3x plus 2 is equal to 0, or 6x minus 7 is equal to 0. And let's subtract 2 from both sides, and here we will get a 0, so we remain with 3x is equal to 0 minus 2, it is negative 2. So x is equal to negative 2 out of 3. This side, let's add 7 from both sides, such that we will get a 0 here, and we get 6x is equal to 7, and x will be 7 out of 6, which is the same as 1 and 1 out of 6. So you will realize that x is equal to negative 2 out of 3, or x is equal to 1 and 1 out of 6. Let's get our final example. Let's have a into a minus 5 is equal to 0. So we say that a is equal to 0, or a minus 5 is equal to 0. And let's add 5 on both sides, such that we will have a 0 here and remain with a, that is equal to 0 plus 5, that is 5. So finally a is equal to 0, or a is equal to 5. Now examples 1, 2, 3 and 4, they are in factored form. Now let's get another section and we solve this kind of quadratic equations. In number 1, let's have 3x squared plus 6x is equal to 0. Number 2, we will get 2k squared plus 18k is equal to 0. Part 3, let us have 3y squared minus 5y is equal to 0. And in part 4, we get 3a minus 81a squared is equal to 0. This is another set of quadratic equations, and we will solve them by factorization. So let's right away go with example 1. Let's factor this out. We know that we can get 6 divided by 3 to get 2. Okay, so we can get 3x into x. This will give us 3x squared. Now plus 6 divided by 3, that is 2. And we get a 0. And now you see that 3x times x, we get 3x squared. 3x times 2, we get 6x. Now, already you can see that at this point, we are having a quadratic equation that is factored. So, it means that 3x is equal to 0, or x plus 2 is equal to 0. And if we have 3x equals 0, it means that x is equal to 0. And for this case, it means that x equals negative 2 if we subtract 2 from both sides. So finally, we see that x is equal to 0, or x is equal to negative 2. Okay, let's move on to part 2, and let us also factor it out. We can say that 18 can be divided by 2, say that we get 9. So in that case, we can say that we have got 2k into k. That will give us 2k squared. For this case, we get 18 divided by 2 to get 9. That is equal to 0. Now, this is the factored form of this quadratic equation. So we see that 2k equals 0, all k plus 9 is equal to 0. So k equals 0, or k equals negative 9. So therefore k equals 0, or k equals negative 9. Let's go to part 3. Factoring this out, we can factor that we have got y into 3y. Y times 3y, we get 3y squared, minus 5 to come up with a 0. So y times 3y, we get 3y squared. Y times minus 5, we get minus 5y. So then, y equals 0, or 3y minus 5 is equal to a 0. And then we say that if we add 5 here, and we add 5, and we come up with a 0 here, we will remain with 3y that is equal to 5, and y will be 5 out of 3, which is the same as 1, and 2 out of 3. So you see that y is equal to 0, or y is equal to 1 and 2 out of 3. In the final example, factoring this out, we can see that 18 can be divided by, sorry, we can see that 81 can be divided by 3 to get 27. So we can get 3a into 1. 3a times 1, we get 3a, minus 27 divided by 3, we get 27a, which is equal to a 0. So we say that 3a is equal to 0, or 1 minus 27a is equal to 0. And for this case, we see that a is equal to 0. This side, we can get 1 minus 1 minus 27a is equal to 0 minus 1, such that we know that 1 minus 1 will get a 0, and we remain with minus 27a, which is equal to minus 1. A is equal to 1 out of 27. So our final answers will be that A is equal to 0, or A is equal to 1 out of 27.